Good evening, and thank you for tuning in for Chamber Live. I am Christine Curnan, Vice President of the Princeton Mercer Regional Chamber, and I'm pleased to have as my guest this evening Mary Passalacqua, owner of the Woolverton Inn, and Debbie Bays, Communications Director and co-founder of the ZB Group. I love having two chamber members on the show at the same time that actually do business together. Welcome, Mary and Debbie. How are you?
Hi, good evening. Nice to be here. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, I'm delighted to be here with Mary. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome. So Mary, tell me, after a long, successful career in finance, 5 years ago, you became the owner of the Woolverton Inn. How and why did you make this completely different career and lifestyle change?
Oh, Christine, let me tell you, the story starts over 30 years ago. My husband Mario and I were married right after college, and our first home was upstate New York in Binghamton. And we spent our weekends exploring the upstate New York beautiful areas, the small towns. And before we knew it, we started to really develop a love of B&Bs. So we loved visiting the towns. We liked the history. We met some of the owners. And we started to nurture what we called our second career, so the plans for our future career. And in the meantime, we worked hard, we raised a family, but we kept our eye on the B&B marketplace. We attended some classes and some workshops, and from time to time, we would spend some of our vacation days visiting other inns in the area. And so we started to hone our vision of what type of inn we might like to own one day. And then at some point, about 10 years ago, we had the opportunity to move to Europe, and we lived in Milan for 2 years. We had 2 jobs, 2 teenagers, and a preschooler. And that experience was really pivotal in terms of learning to really appreciate and experience hospitality in a way that we hadn't really felt it before. We were welcomed by our colleagues, by neighbors, and by distant relatives who really just welcomed us right into their homes. That Italian hospitality was like just our open arms just wrapping right around us, and that really stayed with us. And that was something we brought back. And thinking already about owning a B&B, we said, this is something we feel very passionately about wanting to share with others. One other thing I would quickly add is that we learned something about ourselves, which was that we were able to take some level of risk and make some changes, even at, sort of your midlife time frame. And with good planning and kind of a solid footing, it was okay and it felt good to do that. So when we returned back to the States, started back in our careers again, from stateside, we were a little bit restless. And we really started to anticipate and look forward to making the change. And after about 3 years, the Woolverton Inn showed up on our radar through advisors that we were in touch with. And we said, okay, this is the right property. And we were ready to make the change. And so we did.
Wow, that's so exciting. And kudos to you, Italy. I totally know what you mean about their hospitality. I love Italy. I love visiting there. And I can always come back with that same feeling like, wow, they really, really make you feel welcome. So Debbie, tell me how you met Mary.
Well, it was about 2 years ago, and it was at a chamber business after business networking event. This one was at Mrs. G's, the very nice appliance store in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. And it was very festive. It was after the new year. It was very well attended. There was great food, great wines. And Mary and I just struck up a conversation over by, I think, the pasta bar. I happen to love these events and look forward to when, once again, they'll be in person, because they're just a great place to see old friends and meet new ones and meet new colleagues. And I have to add, though, that during the pandemic, the Chamber has done a great job in terms of virtually offering these events and opportunities to learn and still keep up the networking online. But I do look forward to when we can be back in person.
Oh, me too, Debbie, me too. And that was a great event at Mrs. G. She always does such a fabulous job hosting the chamber. So Mary, the Woolverton Inn is a very historic location. Can you tell us a bit about the history of the inn?
So the challenge in owning a historic property like the Woolverton Inn is to marry the old and the new, right? And so, we have to really recognize the prior owners for the work that they did, and now, having purchased the inn ourselves to carry on that tradition and keeping the beauty of the inn and the history, but also making the place comfortable for today's travelers and visitors. So the Woolverton Inn was originally a farmhouse built by John Prawl and his family back in 1792. So the house was associated with the Prawlsville Mill Complex, which sits along the river here in Stockton. So we're located right up the hill from the river. And there were various owners for about 200 years. And at the time, the property was sitting on about 100 acres of farmland. The Woolverton family, a very prominent family in both Hunterdon County and beyond. We've discovered more Woolvertons than we even realized. There's two full books of their genealogy. And we've had some family members, come to stay with us. And that's a lot of fun. They'll bring pictures and some relics from the past. So we try to incorporate that history and share it with our guests as we, constantly accumulating more information. But after the Woolverton sold the house, it was continued private residence. One of the owners was St. John Terrell, who's known in Lambertville for creating the Lambertville Music Circus back in the 50s and 60s. So our property was his private residence. He also started the reenactment of Washington's Crossing down in, at the park area, which is done once a year. And in the 1980s, the owners at that time decided that they were trying to sell the house and it wasn't selling well in that market. So that's when the Woolverton first became a guest house. And they started to convert the property for guests. I would say it was probably at first like an Airbnb. And then over the next 30 years or so, the subsequent owners began some very serious and really tastefully done renovations so that each room had its own bathroom, and then at some point built in air conditioning, built out some of the areas around the property so that the landscapes could be enjoyed by guests for outdoor dining or enjoying views of the surrounding farmland. Today we own 10 acres, but we sit adjacent to 300 acres of preserved farmland in Hunterdon County, which makes for some very beautiful vistas from any angle, any part of the property that you're sitting on. And in addition to our overnight guests, we are open year-round for overnight visitors. We're able to host, and we do enjoy hosting a number of small events, micro weddings and elopements, and also about, let's say, 12 to 15 large weddings a year. We have a tent that can hold up to 200 people, and guests come and stay for the weekend and have their wedding, which is really, taking over the property and having a destination event and celebration. We're also hosting some corporate events, some yoga retreats, etc.
That sounds wonderful. I can't wait to go back and visit again. I'm sure you've made some changes.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part of running the inn?
So hands down, I have to say that my favorite part of the inn is really meeting the guests. And, I always say to myself every day in the morning and to my staff, you just never know who's going to walk through the door. And, I love finding out how people found us and why they're here. And a lot of times we just find something in common. And that to me is just fascinating that, the rule of, I think, 6 points of connection is very, very valid and very true. I also want to say that, having been in corporate for so many years and worked in kind of sometimes in an office setting or a virtual but global setting, it's really nice to be part of a community locally. And one of the maybe silver linings of the pandemic is when Dig Yoga needed a place to host outdoor yoga sessions because their studio was closed, we were able to provide space for them, and they were able to hold their outdoor classes 3 times a week at our tent because we weren't hosting any weddings. The weather was great, and their students really enjoyed it. And I love that part of being a small business owner and owning the Woolverton.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so last year was really challenging for many small businesses, but especially for those in the hospitality and travel industries. How did you fare when the pandemic hit? And are you feeling optimistic about 2021?
Sure. So I think I want to start by saying how, our hearts really go out to everybody who was affected in some way by the pandemic. And probably at this point, we've all been affected one way or another. So, thank you to all those service essential workers who are out there fighting the virus and now trying to distribute vaccines, and we sincerely appreciate everybody's efforts. So yes, we were impacted, and when the phones were ringing in March, they were ringing only to cancel reservations. So we were closed for 2 full months. While we were closed, we had already had some renovation projects on schedule. As it turns out, the pandemic gave us a little more time to get that work done, which we really did need, because it was difficult to have multiple sets of contractors in the same building at the same time. But we got some work done, and we did keep up our marketing efforts. We stayed present digitally and even ran some fun food videos and some other little mini projects, just to stay relevant and hope, with the hopes that while people were home, they were looking for planning some future getaways when they felt comfortable doing that. So slowly but surely, we opened up in June. We followed safe guidelines, which were provided by the American Hotel and Lodging Association, and also by Select Registry, which is an organization that we are part of. And with those protocols in place, we started welcoming guests again. And I have to say, with the layout of the property that we have in our private entrance cottages, people were feeling comfortable coming back and staying a night or two. We did lose all of our large wedding business, but that was replaced in many cases in terms of our dates and our schedule, with a lot of elopements and micro weddings. So, we heard the phrase COVID bride or COVID couples so many times. We tried to remain as flexible as possible to work with these clients and help them still maintain their, ability to celebrate their special occasions. So, the business did stay relatively busy through the fall and through the holidays, and even looking out into the early part of this year. And we're seeing a good recovery, and we're very, very grateful and appreciate everyone who's, stepping away from their day to day. We're a nice change of scenery, I think, to come to Woolverton and see the sheep, and maybe just relax for a day or two.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I'm glad you made it through the pandemic. And certainly we see the light at the end of the tunnel. So yep. Debbie, can you tell us a little bit about you and your services that your company offers?
I've been in the communications business my whole adult career. I started in New York City working for 2 major public relations agencies. And after about 5 years or so, co-founded ZB Group. We were in New York for a little more than 10 years, serving a wide variety of clients. Networking helped also back then to help my business grow. I was active in New York Women in Communications. And then we relocated to the Princeton area. And so for about 25 years or so, we have been working with clients based in New Jersey and really across the country. Different sectors that we serve are consumer brands, obviously travel and hospitality, health and wellness, real estate, business services, and some others. And in a nutshell, we create opportunities for our clients to share their brand story with their target audiences and potentially reach millions of people who wouldn't have known about them otherwise. So we do this by developing and implementing programs that are going to help to turbocharge their marketing. And especially today, many firms, rightly so, and businesses are investing in their online presence, their digital marketing, their social media marketing. So every project is custom, depending, because every client is totally different with their goals and their needs. But a few of the overall benefits that we offer are increasing their website traffic, helping to increase engagement on social media. We help to leverage the media and influencers so that they share the business, the brand, the organization's story or news, so that the client stands out from their competition.
Well, that's great. And what did your collaboration with Mary entail, and what did you accomplish?
Mary and Mario, their overall goal is to generate awareness about the inn and the beautiful area as well of Lambertville and New Hope and Stockton and Hunterdon and Bucks counties among people who are not already familiar with Woolverton. There were 2 main groups. You have your leisure travelers who are looking to get away, and you also have your business people who are looking for a great place for an off-site or retreat to hold a small business meeting. So we developed and implemented a plan targeted to these two different types of groups. Mary was our spokesperson. She was very effective at that. And I'm sure you might know, Christine, today, a lot of company CEOs, founders, leaders are the ones that are talking to the media. And it's great because it's another way to A, show their personality, and B, make a connection with their audience. So we encourage that if that's possible. So there were many different story angles and ideas, often simultaneously, we were working on together. I'll just name a few. One was the female business owner reinvention story, which is really a great one today and a popular one. The getaway story, that Woolverton is a great place for a couple looking to just have, a romantic weekend away or celebrate a birthday. The executive retreats, again, it's a great place to hold a smaller business meeting because often the company can take over the entire inn. Unlike if you're in a busy hotel, you're one of many conferences going on. So at Woolverton, you get that privacy. The garden cottage at Woolverton is pet friendly. It offers a place for dogs and their owners to really be pampered together and be outside when the weather is great. So we had a lot of different angles going. In all, we garnered more than 10 million media impressions. And to do this, there were lots of different stories that ran, online and in print. I'll just quickly mention a couple of things that ran. We worked with a baby boomer blogger and a millennial blogger, because those were two different audiences that Mary wanted to reach. And both of them, one was the brown-eyed flower child, her name is Taylor. She came and stayed with a girlfriend, stayed overnight, enjoyed the area, enjoyed the breakfast, and then shared her experience on her blog and on her social media channels. And the baby boomer blogger who visited was named Judy. She came with her boyfriend. Again, they had a wonderful stay. She actually wrote 2 different blog posts about Woolverton and Mary. And again, it ran on all the social media, her platforms. So those were just 2 of many stories. So in the end, we expanded Woolverton Inn's reach to new audiences, shared their story and their messages, and helped to build up their credibility as a great place to visit, whether you're looking for a place to relax, which we all need today, fun, just to have fun when the weather's great, or even not, there's lots going on in the area, or a place for a business meeting, as I mentioned. Woolverton then posted the stories on their website and on their blog, and some are still on the website today. And if you were to Google Woolverton and Mary Passalacqua today, you would see a lot of these stories come up organically in search, which helps build that online lively presence that I was talking about earlier.
Okay, well, that's great. So Mary, what's your best advice for inspiring new entrepreneurs or for people who may want to buy an existing business like you did with your husband, Mario?
So Christine, right after we purchased the Woolverton Inn, I was just a sponge for, learning from others, primarily other innkeepers. And of course, you're also on the receiving end of advisors, sending you their guidance or their, hoping to give you their advice. So one of the phrases I came across, and it stuck with me, it was an interesting webcast, and the title was, owning a B&B, it's not just about the muffins. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, that's so true. I mean, this is working on one little function. I'm spreading my wings very widely and putting my arms around an entire business, even though it is a small business, but I'm responsible for all aspects of the business. The point there is that, your passion might drive you to a business, but, in order to run it and hopefully run it well, knowing what it needs and then knowing how each area gets the right amount of attention and where you're going to focus your time. Because, owners can't, the biggest problem is we spread ourselves too thin and we try to do everything ourselves. And that leads us, I think, full circle back to the work that we did with Debbie. So, for me, coming from a background in operations and finance, I did not come to Woolverton with 30 years of marketing experience. Debbie explained to me the difference between PR and advertising and marketing at a very basic level, but it was very helpful. But I needed to fill in some gaps, with some smart people and some good resources around the core staff we took on when we bought the business. With that thinking, Debbie was right there, kind of at the, in a time when we were looking for adding some serious public relations project work. That was advice I received from someone else. And so I think listening to others and, understanding you're not always going to have all the answers. And thank you for offering resources out there in terms of the chamber to connect with business owners. So
you're very, very welcome. And I totally understand when you say that, you can't be an expert in everything, right? So you have to ask the experts in those areas where it's not your expertise for help. And looks like you two found each other and it worked out really, really well. So,
yeah.
But I loved listening and hearing about both of your businesses. Can't wait to come and visit Mary again in the spring.
Yes.
And just want to thank you both for being on the show this evening. But before I conclude, I would like to thank our production sponsor, April Seti and New Jersey Buzz Productions. If you are not familiar with The Buzz, I highly recommend following The Buzz on social media. Thank you all for tuning in. I do hope you'll join us again Tuesday, April 13th at 7 p.m. for our next Chamber Live.